Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome back. This is Patrick Riggins with the Patrick Riggins Show. Kind of works out well that way when you get a show with your name on it. People remember it a little better. Anyway, when we left off, talking a little bit about different things, and what I want to hit on too before the show's over real quick is a story the other day I saw detailing how Afghanistan is now considered a non-NATO ally. What this means that the country can now buy more American equipment, more sensitive technology, and benefit from more streamlined defense cooperation. There is also an international conference in Japan this week where donors, meaning governments, were expected to pledge around $4 billion per year in what is being called long-term civilian support. Now, to put that in perspective, in America we call this welfare. But anyway, the average total aid per year Afghanistan receives from the world is around $85 billion. Their population right now is listed as about 33.4 million. So we'll say 34 million to err on the side of too many instead of too few. Of course, you know where this point's going. What this works out is to about $2,500 per person in a country where the average income is $425. Now, in the story, let's see, this is U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said, "We see this as a powerful commitment to Afghanistan's future. We are not even imagining abandoning Afghanistan," she said in a grand courtyard of the presidential palace after talks with President Hamid Karzai. So we're going to be paying off this country's leaders for time immortal now, is what we're saying. Because you know all of this money, very little is going to be making it to the local population. It's just like in this country. You give $100 to the government, and by the time it gets back out of the Washington machine, you have about $1, maybe $1 and change to go towards helping someone. But hey, everyone in Washington got paid, and that's all. That's what's important, right? Anyway, the story goes on further and says, fighting still rages as Afghan and U.S.-led coalition forces battle insurgents, mostly in the eastern part of the country. Although casualties have fallen among foreign forces as the United States and other nations begin a gradual withdrawal, 215 coalition soldiers were killed in the first 6 months of the year, compared with 217 in the same period last year. Gee, what a revelation. As more troops pull out, less are killed. I guess it is hard to kill one of our troops when they're back home here instead of walking around the war zone. But sounds so good to put it in there, and they're hoping you won't think too much about that. Clinton, who flew to Kabul after attending a 100-nation meeting on Syria in Paris, stressed the importance of the pledges for civilian aid. Afghanistan's cash-strapped government depends heavily on foreign assistance, and any significant drop-off in that help after 2014 could set back the country's development. Asked about the corruption that has plagued the Afghan government, Clinton said the U.S. was working hard with Afghan authorities to eliminate fraud, mismanagement, and abuse. She said the meeting in Tokyo would include accountability measures to ensure that money sent to Afghanistan benefits the Afghan people. This is an issue the government and the people of Afghanistan want action on, and we want to ensure they are successful, Clinton said. So we're going to eliminate fraud and mismanagement and abuse in the system there in Afghanistan. Even though in our country, the United States government is rife with fraud, mismanagement, and abuse. We're supposed to believe that you're going to root it out over there? Notice, too, she stated that any significant drop-off in civilian aid after 2014 could set back that country's development. What that means is the U.S. taxpayer will be making up the difference when it does happen. And believe me, it will. Nations that once gave more generously to Afghanistan are now seeking guarantees that their taxpayer money will not be lost to corruption and mismanagement. International donors say that many promises to crack down on corruption have not been carried out. Some highly placed Afghan officials have been investigated for corruption but seldom prosecuted. And some graft investigations have come close to the president himself. Yeah, eliminating that fraud and mismanagement, that's going to happen. We are going to end up carrying more people on the back of the American taxpayer at a time when we're getting a little tired of doing so. Again, and I can't stress this enough, you need to let your representatives know that this is not something we should be doing. Heck, I don't like the entitlement mentality we have in this country. I don't need it coming from a bunch of people thousands of miles away. But yet, here we are, throwing money all around the globe like it will go on forever. I say we should probably follow Dr. Ron Paul's lead and invest in gold, because the American dollar is going to start losing value more so than it has already as we continue to crank up the printing presses and hand them out to people all over the world. Incidentally, if you missed that story about Ron Paul putting his money where his mouth is, you can go to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. It is posted there along with other archive shows, wherein tomorrow this show will be there as well. Also this week, a follow-up to the story about Mayor Bloomberg's announcement limiting certain sugary drinks to 16-ounce cups or less, and this was in the New York Daily News. And basically, what the opinion is, Jacob Solom was saying that many people on the Board of Health are now getting mad that they're not including milkshakes and mixed drinks as well. For example, they have, under Bloomberg's plan, a 20-ounce serving of Coke, which contains 240 calories, will be forbidden in every one of the city's bars and restaurants. But add 2 shots of rum, raising the calorie count to about 440, and you transform that contraband Coke into a legal Cuban Libre. From a public health perspective, this makes no sense, especially since the alcohol adds not only calories, but also myriad hazards unrelated to obesity. So, Tori, it's just amazing how people find a way around all these goofy laws.
You're not allowed to drink anything in New York over 22 ounces. Nothing, unless it's government fortified water. How's that?
Yeah.
How's that? Nothing. You can't drink anything.
I'm not so sure I drink government fortified water.
I don't think I like the government telling me how much of anything I can drink.
I would say government fortified water sounds a lot like tainted Kool-Aid.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
Drink the Kool-Aid. Get a good cup of that.
Well, that's a different. That's next week's. That's next week's show, right?
Well, yeah, that's a problem. We have a lot of people in Washington drinking the Kool-Aid and just love every bit of it.
As long as it's not over 22 ounces.
As long as it's not over 22,
you can have your 21.9 ounces of government Kool-Aid.
Well, apparently, like I said, you throw a couple of shots in it, it's no longer forbidden. Now it's just a mixed drink. So, but yeah, we'll talk about that on next week's show.
The politicians in New York like drinking the rum. That's why they're not going to say anything about that.
Sure.
They like rum.
Anyway, if you'd like more information on this show, you can go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Patrick Riggins Show. Be sure and hit the like button too, so you'll be kept updated on everything we post throughout the week. And you don't have to have an account for that, too. You can just go to facebook.com/Patrick Riggins Show. And we're also on Twitter at Patrick Riggins and YouTube at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. Join me next Sunday afternoon when we once again will talk about freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. This is Patrick Riggins, and we will see you next week, next Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for another very, very fast hour of the Patrick Riggins Show. See you next Sunday.
Join us again next week for a solid dose of truth on the Patrick Riggins Show, every Sunday from 4 to 5 p.m. Be there.